Our growth happens not when we want it, but when we're ready. Because a lot of people want it instantly, but they're not ready for it instantly. If a new agent came in and then their phone rang with 20 new clients, they would have no idea what to do with 20 new clients or how to service that properly, right? So it's like you need to almost earn your stripes, like anything.
Yeah, you're thinking it's a bad thing to go golfing, and you shouldn't be golfing. You should be going looking for clients, or you should be,
right.
Yeah, you can do it. It's a balancing act to make sure that everything's getting taken care of, and you're golfing too, But I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't do that in this business, you need to get out.
Yeah.
And it took me 7 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
Right. You need to get out of the business if you can't treat yourself to a little bit of time of your own.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are back with another episode of Port City Podcast with a return guest today, Mike Bourque. It's been about 1.5 years since you've been on the podcast last time, and super excited to get you in today because last time we were talking about some stuff, but a lot's changed. A lot's been happening in the last 1.5 years, and
yeah,
we've all grown as individuals, and I'm excited to just get into a conversation here. So Mike, for people at home watching, maybe just give yourself a quick introduction about who you are.
Yeah, well, I've been working as a realtor now for 7 years. Been with eXp just over 2 years now. That happened, I believe, in November. So we're heading into the 3rd year with eXp now. Yeah, that's pretty much it. I've been, I did all kinds of stuff before I was a realtor, but my God, we talk about the sales things. And
I want to talk about that a little bit because I think that would be beneficial, Mike, because I think people at home watching to realize the amount of sales experience you have. So you said 7 years as a real estate agent, but you have a depth of sales history, everything from cars to boats and then we were just talking just right before furniture as well.
Yeah,
talk about that a little bit.
Been in sales in and out different places for the last 25 years. Did sales in all kinds of different things, but when I left sales and got into the real estate, everybody sort of thinks you're going to sell something, go become a realtor and we'll sell houses. And people get that in their heads as a realtor. And when I first started, that's sort of the way I was thinking too, right? You're going to go and sell houses. And really, as you became a little bit more, a 2nd, 3rd year realtor, you sort of figured out that you weren't selling anything. You're basically guiding these people through the process of buying a house. It's not like you're selling a car where you like that car, you want to take it home tomorrow. Buying a house is a bit of a different process, of course, going through the motions of that and the time frames and the time you start to the time you finish might be 6 months, might be a year.
Right.
It could be a month. I just finished one that was inside of a month, but they're all different, every one of them.
That's right. And that is something you realize very early on in this career is you can't just accidentally convince someone to buy a house. Like, I've been to car dealerships before, and it's like they know they want to get you when you're emotional, right? So they'll sit you there and they'll hand you the keys. You go and you drive the vehicle and like, do you like it? Well, let's go inside, do an application. Let's try to get it signed up right now.
Yeah.
They want to get you signed up almost before you walk out of the lot. It's all being done that quick, right? And with real estate, there's so many different hurdles that the client needs to go through before they even, let's say, make the offer or get that offer firmed up, right? There's so many steps and so many other parties in place. First of all, you have your lenders. So your lender's going in there to get people pre-approved, figuring out what their price range is. So then they figure out what they're able to look at and kind of what their strategy is getting into the market. Or if they're buying another house from one they already had. there's so many steps. Lawyers, you have bankers, you have inspectors, there's insurance. So it's not like you can just, kind of have somebody come into an open house and sign them right up right there, right?
You've got to jump through a few hurdles. I mean, that's, before you're out there looking. But, I think the biggest trick today, and a lot of the youngsters that are out there, and I've dealt with a few in the last little while, and I think the biggest trick today is getting out and actually looking for the house. Yeah. I mean, we were talking about that on, with a couple that I was dealing with, and no, we looked at this. Okay, yeah, we looked at it online. Yeah, but why don't you go look at it where it is, the physical place? Is there nastiness in the backyard? What's going on with this house, right? Yeah. So you can't buy a house online. No, you got to physically go and, get out there and look. Are you looking at 2 a night? Are you looking at 3 a night? And I always ask that question. When we leave, it's a little different in the sales where they're like you say, they're selling you the car, they want to do a credit app. And I always ask the question, is this the one?
Yeah.
Right? Do you think this is the one? Because of course, you and I have to fill out these reports to the other agent. Is that the house? No, it's not the house. Yeah. Thank you for allowing me to show your house, but it's not the house for them.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of times I'll end up highlighting some things that they may not see in the house that might not be favorable for the house too, because a lot of times when clients walk into a house, they're kind of excited. They may not be analyzing with a critical eye. They might just be, especially if it's first-time home buyers, they're just excited to be in some properties, and they're kind of thinking, oh, what would it be like to live here, right? But they may not see certain things that we catch from our experience of being inside so many homes. So I find now what I try to do is I try to make it a very unbiased experience. Like, I don't want to just focus on, oh, look at all the great things. It's like, look at all the great things, but if I notice anything that's maybe not so great or that needs to be pointed out, like, let's point those out too and just say, hey, heads up, I noticed this thing here that would probably come up on an inspection. Just, little stuff, different types of heaters over those like top vented heaters. If you have your towel hanger in the bathroom right above them, it's like, I know an inspector would bring that up. You've done enough inspections that the things that kind of get flagged. So I try to almost point some of those out in advance for some people so that they can understand a full picture of if they get an inspection or, what they want to do. I want to try to inform people as much as possible. Finding the age of the windows, always looking inside the pane of the window to see what I can find for an age of the window, because that gives you a good story about the last time there were some updates in the house. Yeah, are they original?
I ran into a bit of I wouldn't say it's a problem. We had to actually withdraw from the offer, but not knowing, and I sort of knew, but I didn't. We put an offer on a property, and the property had an oil furnace, and of course, you have an oil furnace. 1,000 insurance questions came from that oil furnace. Mm-hmm. And long before we did our inspection, long before we fulfilled any of the other conditions, this oil furnace became a big insurance nightmare. Okay, and the amount of insurance that they wanted the person to carry, and the risk that was involved, and they just frown upon an oil furnace or any type of oil oil product being in a house today.
Yeah. At one point, which is so funny because that was common. Yeah. I think we're just getting to that. Yeah,
one point in time that was very common, and it's like now it's not so common. Yeah. And it was very. So we actually withdrew because I think the insurance was awful handy, $5,000 a year because of the insurance, because of the oil furnace. Right. So the buyers were saying, Mike, we can't afford the insurance. Oh, okay. Well, then no problem. We'll back out. Right. And then the focus became on a house with electric baseboard heats and heat pumps and, some of the more modern things. So the house with the oil furnace, they pretty much ruled out. They weren't looking at any more houses with oil furnaces. Yeah. So, you learn on every deal that you put together, there's some type of a learning process involved. I said, if you stop learning in this business, you might as well go and change businesses because it's true. It never fails, right?
And there's always changes happening in the industry. There's always changes happening with code, changes happening in municipalities with what's allowed, and just staying on top of it. That's just it. There's no room to get complacent in this industry. No. And the market itself is always evolving too, right? We're now kind of living through the last 5 years of a very fast shifting market in 2020 to what we've now been dealing with, but we're now seeing it kind of pivot as well a little bit here in New Brunswick, especially this time of year that we're filming right now in November 2025.
Well, I know in the springtime, you and I talked on a couple of different meetings that we had. And, in Moncton, what was happening in Moncton wasn't happening in St. John.
Yeah.
And it was different cities, different things happening. And Moncton, I'd say we're almost 3 or 4 months into an actual balanced market.
Yeah.
And pivoting towards a buyer's market. Okay, it's not there yet, but it's getting very close.
Wow, yeah.
Where you're seeing, and I know I just did one. I mean, offering $10,000 and $20,000 less than ask.
Yeah.
When you're sitting there and doing a reverse CMA on a house and saying,
I'm glad
"Well,
you brought that up."
Yeah, this house is not worth what they're asking for."
Yeah.
At the end of the day, and I've got that. That question came up the other day. Mike, where are you coming? Where are you coming with this offer? Yeah, well, you're at $200. It was $230 a square foot. I said, do you think you're exceeding the market? I asked the other realtor at the other side, are you exceeding the market? Do you think that? I said, there's a lineup of people that want to buy that house, and the phone went sort of quiet, and I said, that is the offer. And the offer, you can counter it if you want, but the offer is the offer. Mm-hmm. I said, what I suggest for you to do is do your job and present it.
Yeah.
Right?
For people at home watching, or maybe anybody that doesn't know, what's the reverse CMA?
Well, no different than doing a CMA. I do the CMA on that house, on that specific house that I'm offering in on, to see if the realtor's gone a little too far on the actual price of the house. Or did the person selling the house get involved and say, well, I want to ask 20 more than market value? So am I doing my due diligence for my buyers? Absolutely, yes.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when I did the reverse CMA on the house, it wasn't worth what they were asking for it. You can put that as a price, but is it going to stick?
Right.
Right?
Because the market's going to tell you whether or not you're priced right. The market lets you know. You get very real-time feedback, right? And it's something that some sellers don't want to come to terms with. And that's why I like your listing presentation or your pre-listing package that you give, which has the following statements. It's, what is the market value? Well, it's not what you need to sell the house for. It's not what your friends say. It's not what the neighbors say, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, those are the things that it's not, where a lot of people kind of might hear something from somebody, or, it's not what the neighbor's house sold for across the street either, right? Because every house is different. That could be a good anchor. It can be a good anchor as to where your price is, but depending on, are they similar updates? I've seen products side by side that are vastly different.
Everybody wants to try it. I get it. Are you leaving $10,000 or $20,000 on the table? Yeah, I get it. But the CMA, I mean, you and I do CMAs on a daily basis. We look at that house, and this is the value. We don't waste anybody's time doing a CMA. When you come to that house with that CMA, I just did a listing presentation with 2 other realtors, and there was 2 other realtors on the kitchen table. And now, you're competing with 2 other realtors.
Yep.
And for the same business. And that's great. And then, the question came, where do you get this number? Well, I said, it's a CMA. This is how we do a CMA. And she says, well, how come, he says, you and these 2 other realtors are within $3,000 of the price? Well, yeah, give or take. I said, a couple of percentage points of the price, depending how they put their CMA together. But at the end of the day, where they were going with this is that, they had a price in their brain. And they wanted a specific number. And I said, well, where are we going with this? I had to ask that, because at the end of the day, if you're putting $525 on your CMA and they want $550 or they want $525 at the end, but what the people didn't understand is how close you can get to the CMA is going to reflect on how fast your property will sell,
right?
And may even go into multiples.
Yes. Yep.
Right. So, that was the whole trick, that basically if you got close to the CMA, you were going to attract more than one person to buy your property.
Right.
Okay, so you may get a little bit taller than where you want to land by doing the reverse psychology to what you're actually thinking.
Right, and that's going to sound familiar to anybody that's been looking in the market for the last 5 years, because that's been kind of what the strategy has turned to since 2020, was a lot of the listing it slightly under even where you think it needs to be, so that you build up that interest over time. And a big reason that happened is because we were seeing the demand rise so fast, and we weren't able to keep up with our inventory levels. So then you were seeing some people come in with the property being listed within 24 hours, and they're putting in what was being called the bully offers. And it was pretty well just saying, here's our firm and final, take it or leave it. You have like an hour or two to decide, pretty well saying like, this is my offer, but I'm only going to leave it open for like 2 hours, even though there may have been 4, 5, 6, 7 showings already booked, because it just hit the market within the last 24 hours. And not everybody is able to get in that first day. So then our board, I believe, started looking at it and saying like, how do we manage this type of demand and this type of kind of inventory crisis that we were going through. And then they came up with the seller direction form, which pretty well allows, or it demands that the selling agent hold any offers and not show it to the seller until a specific time, normally about 4 to 7 days after it's been listed.
Well, in Moncton, we've seen the shift in holding offers back in the spring, right? The shift, we discussed that in open meetings, and the shift already started to happen in Moncton very early spring, where we weren't seeing, multiple offers coming in, where we weren't seeing, a list of buyers going through the door looking at the property, where I seen, 10 days, 14 days before you even got an offer. Yeah. So we've seen that shift in Moncton, where in St. John, I remember talking to you back in the spring, and you guys were still doing multiple offers.
Yeah. It was a pretty strong seller's market in the spring and even in the summer too, but we're starting to see that we're starting to edge into the balance. Yeah. Actually, as of the last market update for October, we're in a balanced.
Yeah, so we're looking at, in Moncton, we've been in a balance for a little while. So now what we're looking at is basically houses staying on the market. And I sold one out of town. It wasn't in Moncton. It was outside of Moncton. And it took 6 months. Yeah. And it wasn't out of whack on the price. 6 months on the market, that's a long time to be on the market. Right?
In this market, yeah.
Yeah. So it eventually got sold, and I've seen some in Moncton 14, 24, 30 days. One that I sold on 45 days. Now that is the number in Moncton now, is 45 days on market. Yeah. So, we were talking, and I had that conversation the other day with another client, should I list my house in January or should I wait till the spring? And we got, I said, well, list your house in January. And you know what the price is going to be in January? I said the December CMA is going to be probably the January CMA. It's not going to change.
It'll be very similar. Yeah.
But come April, I don't know if that price is going to hold on to, is the market declining? Is the market swapping back the other way? More than likely, So if you're trying to say, well, do I wait till April to put my house on the market, or do I do that in January? Not everybody wants to sell a house in January, but what I was telling my clients is, look, if you sold it in January, you're 45 days on market. I said, you got everything firmed up in 50 to 60 days on the market. Mm-hmm. We're already now in March. I said, if you put a mid-April closing day, your winter's gone. Yeah. Right? You're out by April. Okay? I don't know. I mean, and I know we go through that in the summertime, but I've got better things to do in the summer. Yeah. If I was a seller, I want to go to the beach or go on a boat or go golfing or do something with my time than selling my house and cutting my lawn every second day to try to keep it looking, decent. Yeah. Yeah. Because the winter market slows down, like for the activity. That's something so I've been putting together these charts and analyzing it visually, analyzing how the St. John market has been ebbing and flowing. And
And it's one thing to look at the numbers and understand it. I find it's another when you see the actual charts and you can kind of start to put patterns together, right? Like you always see a little spike going into October. It's like after everybody gets back to school and things settle in a little bit, you see a spike in activity. And then you see it just from October pretty well drop from October, November, December, and then it pretty well hits its lowest in December, January for activity. I think last year there was like 98 sales in St. John. And like, normally 180, like, so almost like half as many sales happening, right? Just because most people don't want to move around Christmas. It makes sense.
Yeah.
But, I look at this stuff and go, where's the opportunity? Well, sometimes I'm looking at it going, this might be a great time for some of my buyers to lock up a property because there's less competition. There's less activity happening.
Absolutely. You're not competing with anybody in January. I mean,
Right.
You're looking at, April, and you can do that when you're doing a CMA. You're saying, well, I found 12 of the same house within, the same design, within the same square foot. You're now competing with 12 people at the same thing.
Yeah.
Okay, where January, you're not competing with anybody.
Right,
or
right.
February or
That's
March,
another thing
right?
to look out for too, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes we'll have a strategy to list a property and then maybe one comes up like across the road and it's like, it's now actually the best time. Should we wait for that one to firm up so there's not two available at the same time and we're splitting the demand, There's a lot of strategy that comes into listing a property, into pricing it properly. Something I wanted to ask you is, because I think this would be a good conversation, is like, because a lot of people seem to want to try to price their house for as much as possible, right? Like they most want to put the price tag of like what they think they could get at the highest market value plus some. And I think a cool conversation for us to have would be understanding what happens, because we've seen it happen time and time again when people overprice listings. What ends up happening on the market? Like how does that go for us when we're overpricing properties? I find it doesn't normally work in our favor.
Not in our favor, no. I mean, the clients will go through, I call it the 14-day, go through the first 14 days and absolutely nothing happens.
Yeah.
And they come back and what's going on? Are you doing this or, what are you doing for marketing? They want to know how you're putting that out, which you are.
Yep.
And the problem is you shock the market with the price. And of course, the price is giving you the response. You're getting the response from the price where, the clients are not responding to your price.
Yeah.
So
and that's the live feedback I'm talking about,
yeah,
right? That's the live feedback that you get.
Yeah,
like real time.
The buyers are not responding to that price, I mean, and I see that all the time because working with buyers on the other side of the table, the first thing that I look at is like, let's go look at it, but it's overpriced.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can go look at it, but it's overpriced. And when you're working with the buyer, you're working at the buyer side, doing your due diligence for the buyer. But, putting a listing up and throwing whatever number into the skew and expecting something to come from that is just going to cause you a whole lot of grief, right? It's just, and what ends up happening, I call it the pain. And of course, the sellers get a little pain. What's going on, Mike? Why is this not selling? Why are we not getting showings? Why is nothing going on? And it's a painful reminder that you can't do what you're wanting to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's calling you out on that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, there's three major factors when it comes to listing a property, and it's the price, the area, and the product. Right?
Yeah.
So the product is the state of the home. Is it updated? Is it modern? Is there major issues with it? Like what's the product like? And normally, that's a tougher one to change. Then you have the area. Well, you can't change the area, so there's not much you can do there, but that's a big factor when it comes to listing properties. And then the one thing that we do have control over is the price, right? So it's being strategic and being as strategic as possible with that price is so important. And I think it's getting more important now as we're coming back into these balanced markets where the last few years you could almost just underprice. I mean, I've seen some places here in our market that they listed for, almost $80,000 to $100,000 probably for the market value, and then it sells way more than that. And I mean, is that a strategy? Sure. It confuses a lot of people, gets a lot of buyers frustrated. It's, it might make you look like a hero in those moments, and that's great to do, but it's, I think now we're getting into a point where it's more important than ever to price properties properly.
Well, you're seeing somebody, that prices a house at $100,000 undervalued, and the first thing they do is they sell it for $50,000 more than the price, and, up goes the advertisement, sold over asking. Really? Did you actually sell it over asking?
Yeah.
Yeah, you did, but... are you at $30,000? Did you leave $30,000 on the table? And that's where that reverse CMA comes into play and say, well, this is what this house is worth. Dollar for dollar, square foot for square foot. You look and try to figure out dollar for dollar, what's that worth versus what sold, just like it.
Yeah.
So it's like you're doing your due diligence again.
100%. 100%. So then you have a vast background of sales. What's been some things that you've done, Mike, to keep your sword sharp in these businesses? Because these are, you and I were talking earlier, right before we got filming, and we said that if you ever quit learning, or maybe we said it on the podcast, if you ever quit learning, then you're pretty well done in this business, and you need to always keep learning. So what are some things that you do to keep your mental sword sharp for these? Yeah,
this real estate business is much different than, selling a car. I call those guys order takers. Really, that's what they are. They're in there to take an order or selling a boat. I sold boats for years, and it was passion. People would come in, they want to buy a boat, or they want to buy a fishing boat, or, want to take my family out on the water on the weekend. What $100,000 is going to buy me, and how fast can you sign me up and get me on the water?
Right.
That's a passionate buy.
Right.
A home is not a passionate buy. It is. If you find that right house, you can sort of tell that the buyers are passionate about that house, but again, I can't make that decision what they are going to buy.
No, we can't make them passionate about a home, but when they are, I think that's when it's the best, right? Like once we find a property that our buyers are naturally passionate about, without us kind of, obviously forcing it down. And that's something, like I said earlier, like I realized very early on, you can't force anybody, or you can't even convince anybody to really buy a house, right? They need to know, and at some point in the last few years, I almost started to look at myself as almost a consultant in a way, right? It's like where I'm guiding my clients through the transaction. I'm here for advice. I have all kinds of experience, sold over 125 properties in the last 7 years. So it's, you have a track record of success, but it's just guiding them to what they're comfortable with too, right? It's making sure that they see the value and that it's the right house for them. And as a real estate agent, I know when my clients are interested, and I know when they're not. And sometimes I just tell them, I'm like, you don't seem very interested in this one. Maybe this one's not for you. We'll just keep looking.
I always ask that question. I said that a little earlier. You asked that question, is this the one? And they're really quick to respond to that. Where they're going to come back and say, no, we don't think this is it, Mike. Okay, great. Let's move on. Yeah. Right? It's not... You can't dwell on that one. If you think you like it, that may be for you, but it's not for you at the end. You're not buying it. You're not living there. You're not. That's the choice of the buyer.
Right.
I'd say at one point in time, I probably would have said I'd rather have 20 listings and 2 buyers. And now I rather have 20 buyers and 2 listings.
Yeah. And that's the shifting markets.
Yeah. You look at it and say, well, I don't want to list. I do want to list a property, but I don't want to list a property that's overpriced. And you're going in beating your head against the wall right from the get go. Yeah. That's the shifting market. We see the market shifting right now. Yep. It's not the same market as, and I said that back in 2022. It was like selling boats. We were just writing them. You were just putting them on paper and putting the details together, because then you just move to the next one.
And the other difference with boats, I'm sure I've never sold boats, or even I don't think I've ever walked into a boat dealership. But cars, for sure, I've walked into car dealerships. I've never sold cars. But the thing is, when you're at a dealership, people come to you.
Yes.
People are walking in.
Yeah.
Most people that walk into a car dealership, they're either dabbling with the idea in their mind or they're ready to buy something, right? Same as I'm sure people going to look at boats, right? They're probably dabbling with the idea or they're ready to buy something. But we don't have that in real estate. It's
No.
not like anybody's knocking on our door going, "Hi, I'm ready to buy a house."
No.
Or, "Hey, hey, I want you to..." Now, if you build a good brand, then you can have people call you and say, "Hey, I'm ready to buy," or "Hey, I'm ready to sell." Because that's actually how I get most of my business now. But it definitely did not start that way. Did not start that way. It was a grind starting off to find business, and I quickly realized that you have to go out and you have to work to find business. It's not just going to come to you. You need to be out there in front of people, giving value, finding a way to build trust with people. Whether that's going out and having one-on-one conversations, whether that's doing videos like this, whether that's putting out content that tries to educate. You have to find what you do well and how you give value to folks. And I think that that's a big thing. But people don't just come to you, though.
No.
Some people get their real estate license and then just kind of look around and go,
When's my phone going to start to ring?
Right, I'm a real estate agent. Shouldn't people be calling me? Right, I'm going to make a post on Facebook, and then I'll get a call. And then it's like, you do the post.
Yeah, it doesn't happen like that.
No.
You know what I mean? You're out there doing your thing, one client at a time. The next thing you know, you get a referral from maybe one of those clients. Your business, it gets a little bit bigger every year. And it doesn't, you're never, the real estate conversation for me didn't have to stop, but I don't do it as much as I used to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Everywhere you went was real estate, you were talking about real estate.
Well, especially when you're first getting your business up and off the ground, you want to talk about it all the time because it's on your mind, and normally you're pushing hard, and everybody knows you're a real estate agent, so they want to pick your mind, they want to see what you know, and every event you go to, like I remember like the first 3, 4, 5 years. It seemed like everywhere I went, it was always kind of eventually real estate would come up in a conversation one way or another, right? Even sometimes when I was looking to escape it, just going, I'm excited to go and hang out with this group of people and not focus on work for a little bit because I've been focused on work for 9 days straight and I'm really looking forward to a few hours of not doing that. And then it comes up and you're like, and then, but like at the same time, when you're passionate about something, it just becomes easy. So it's like, hey, this is what I do, and so it's kind of pouring back into people too.
At the coffee shop all the time, you walk into the coffee shop and you're going to have a coffee and relax a little bit, and then somebody knows who you are and they're going to start putting the questions to you.
Yeah.
I walked into the superstore the other day, and anyway, this young girl was working the counter at the superstore, and she says, "You're Mike Bourque." And I said, do I know you? I didn't know this young girl. Well, she's your realtor. Yeah. And I was doing these videos at the seat of my truck.
Yeah.
And anyway, this young girl started watching these videos, and she says, I've seen some of your videos, seen some of your stuff. And it's like, really? Is that supposed to be impressive or what? You sort of think like that, right?
Right.
And then I said, oh yeah. She says, I wanted to be a realtor forever. Mm-hmm. What things should I do to become a realtor? And, I asked her, I said, are you 3/4 crazy? And she says, she looked at me sort of strange. And I said, are you 3/4 crazy? She said, should I be? Yeah, you should be. I said, it certainly helps if you're 3/4 crazy, because I said, this is not an easy business.
Yeah, but you can't go full crazy, but you have to just be a little bit. You have to, and so I think it's balancing chaos too is a big part of this business, because so much comes last minute and so much needs to be dealt with last minute, right? Yeah. So there's a certain portion of my day that I pretty well plan and I have blocked off, but sometimes I've woken up and I've had nothing on the calendar that day, nothing major, no major appointments. And I've had some of those days be the busiest days of my life with appointments that come up last minute, completely last minute. And I'm talking like hours before, and it's just kind of running. And then all of a sudden now your days and your pipeline's built right up for that entire day. And I've had other days that look like they're going to be super busy, but then things fall through, people change, stuff gets shuffled around. So it's super important to be able to, I think on your feet in this business and go, okay, I have a few hours free. What's my best way to use that time? And sometimes it's maybe doing something for the business, but maybe you've been doing a ton for the business and you're going, I got to focus on family a little bit for the next, maybe I'm going to use this time and then I'll go get the groceries or whatever. And it's like, so we need to balance all the things that we need to do and then mix it all within our within our business and our personal life as well, because a lot of times those bleed into each other.
Yeah,
in
the
this,
balance.
in this industry.
It's a tough business to balance. I know, I played that balancing act for 3 or 4 years now, a little more better than I did in the past, where it was business straight ahead and everything else took a back seat, and you have to try to balance that, because you can't, the home and the kids and the wife and the chores that you should be doing are not getting done, and you're straight ahead business. When you're in that mode, and I never did. Well, I shouldn't say I did, but I didn't. Get an assistant. You get looking. You think you're bulletproof and you can do everything on your own. And I started farming a little bit out to an assistant.
Recently?
Yeah, been a year now. Little more than a year. I sort of said, I don't want to do all that anymore. A lot of stuff that to me wasn't. It's important that it gets out there. Some of the social media platforms and things that it gets taken care of. But is it important that I do everything on all those social media platforms? No.
No, you don't. No, absolutely.
And I ended up, farming some of that out.
Yep.
And it took me a while to find somebody that I sort of liked the end result.
Yep.
Without me having, and at first it was like, they give you a call and ask you if this was all right or that was all right. And after about 5 or 6 posts, just do it. It's like, don't call me and ask me anymore. Just do it and send me the bill at the end of the month, right?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you just couldn't manage that. And something as small as that gave up so much time, give you back some personal time that, you're trying to balance. And you look back and say, well, it's $300 or $400 or $500 a month to do all this stuff sometimes. And you look at it and say, you know what? I wouldn't do without that.
Yeah.
You can't. You can't just do everything as your.
And I think, that goes into systems like buying back your time, right? A lot of big business folks talk about this all the time, and they talk about buying back your time and how the most valuable thing that we have is our time. So then we have to look at it and go, what's our time worth? And if it's not something you enjoy or if you're good at, chances are it's probably better to find a way to outsource that to somebody that's going to be able to do it well.
Yeah,
right?
I got that from Louis Gill. And
Louis Gill, yeah.
And if it's not on the calendar, it doesn't exist.
It doesn't exist. That's
and
true.
it has to go on that calendar, because you're so dependent on this calendar. And I'll sit down, I think 7, 8 o'clock at night, and look and see what's going on the next day.
Yes, exactly.
Because it's in the calendar.
Yeah.
And then you look back and you say, well, you know what? If I was to put 3 hours for personal time to go golfing, it's in the calendar.
Yeah, you have to.
Work it around the calendar, right?
Yeah.
Work all these other things around the calendar.
Yeah.
I always ask the client, which time frame is better for you, 6, 7, or 8 o'clock at night?
Always, yeah.
Which one's going to work better for you? Is it Tuesday or Wednesday? Right?
Give them options, yeah.
Give them options, because at the end of the day, you're working around your calendar. And it's like, okay, you actually start to figure out that you could do some of these things without, being Johnny on the spot waiting for your phone to go off.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. And just actually, I think this topic is super important is structuring your day. And for everybody that's going to look different, but I think something important to do each day is some type of lead generation. So you've done 66 deals in 1 year before, because we talked about that the last time you were on the podcast. What was the key, and what was your lead generation source, and what are you currently doing for business? Because you've had some big years back to back, and so what do you do for like your lead generation, Mike? For some newer agents at home wondering, because we got some experience now, we're able to kind of guide a little bit. What are some things that you do?
I'm a little bit different, and I see a lot of the youngsters now. They're coming in and doing, similar to this podcast or videos. I do videos on Instagram and Facebook and stuff like that. But I think for me, I'm old school. I still do I've gotten to the point where you go in the morning and you go walking at the mall, you know.
Coffee shop.
Yeah, coffee shops, walking at the mall, talking to people, getting out in the public, talking to people and actually seeing who you're talking to. Yeah. Cold calling people, that's not my game. No. You know, I mean, that's not for me. I was out doing flyers, door knocking, talking to people in the streets. You know, I love that in the summer when I get some time to jump into that. You know, you sold a listing in that area.
Yes,
so you're going to go and talk to everybody in that area to see if they're going to, you know, I just sold one. There's all kinds of people looking at that one. Do you want to sell yours in this area? So you're talking to people. Next thing you know, you're getting that call. Hey, remember me? You know, I was at street where you sold this listing. Yeah. Can you come over and look at my place now? Yeah. So the tactics are a little bit different. You know, I see a lot of people fail tactics that I'm doing, which are doing their own lead gen that is totally different than what I'm doing. And I said, I can't do that.
No.
Right.
And that's the thing that I like about this industry, though, is there's so many different ways to succeed at it. You know, I've heard of people that have Facebook community pages, and they make a Facebook page about their community, and then they create events in there, and they're always kind of highlighting local things going on, and then they build that up, and every once in a while they might share a little bit of like what they're doing. But there's so many different ways to get business, and that's something I find fascinating. I always like to ask people.
A community. I mean, that's you can see there's a few in Moncton that do that farm communities, and they gain everything from that community. Good for you. Yeah. You know?
And I like what you said too about going out and door knocking. When you actually have something valuable to door knock about, I don't like just door knocking saying like, hey, are you looking to sell? Or hey, I got some interested buyers in this area. Like, sure, I'll door knock for clients if there's an area that they want me to. But what I really like doing is when I have a listing, and if there's an open house coming up, just going around, door knock that area, and just invite everybody to the open house. Yeah. So that way, I'm not coming from a place of asking them for something. I'm just saying, hey, I would love for you to come by the open house if you're interested. And then they go, well, why are you asking me? I'm like, well, that's a great question. You're probably wondering, why am I asking you? Because you already live in the area. Well, it's because you obviously like it here. You haven't moved, so you'd be one of the better candidates to talk about this area. And if you know anybody, friends, or family that want to, family, coworkers that want to move by you, you know, you'd be a great advocate. So it's kind of like just explaining to them and then inviting them over, have coffee, you know, get some nice food going on, and then you get to meet the neighbors and talk to them, and then they get to see how you do business as well. Yeah. So there's and then most times people are just a little bit nosy too. But I think it's always good to get neighbors in to kind of see what's going on, and most times they may know somebody that could want to move into the area as well.
Yeah, open houses are probably, I call it the most crucial stage of a listing that you can probably do. Yeah. I've got colleagues that ask me to do their open houses because it's like you get results, you know, doing an open house. And I would say probably 80% of the time an open house brings a buyer, but sometimes not to you.
Not to that property.
Not that. No, I'm getting more like going back to the realtor and saying, okay, well, I was at such and such an open house this weekend, and we want to write on that property. It doesn't necessarily come to Brandon Vincent. It comes to, you know, and I always ask that question: who's your realtor, right? And it's even interesting, you know, to say, Jack and Jill come into my open house and they love the property. You might want to reach out to them and text that realtor, right? Oh yeah, what's the address of this open house? So if the realtor's really keen at the other side and doing their job, they're going to reach out to Jack and Jill and make an appointment to go back in and look at that house again. Yeah. And I see that happen quite a lot. Open houses they're a must.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you got to be doing that, and people don't. You know, the people selling the house don't like to do open houses.
Some people don't. Some people do, though. I've seen a lot of agents that do. I see, there's normally common agents that'll always do open houses, and I think it's a great strategy. And I mean, and especially if you do them right. If you do them right, you have your signage. Like, I've seen some open houses where there's just no signage, right? And it's like you could drive by and not even know what's going on. Signage is super important. Hosting it properly. making sure that it's advertised well beforehand, so a lot of people know to go and visit it as well, right? Using social media. Just because you're doing the open house doesn't mean you don't have to share it or create some other marketing for the open house too, right?
Right. Yeah. That's the key, right? I mean, with some of the systems that we have here now, and like Lofty, I can create an actual ad and target that ad to the city of Moncton. I mean, I've got my first lead the other day from Lofty, and this
Nice.
Where AI now is actually talking to my clients. Okay.
Okay.
And it was a little bit. I knew it was there, and I knew it was because I just changed over to Lofty, and it was like, it's sending me these scripts on my text message that such and such a client is looking at such and such a property and wants to visit. What the dine is this and this? That where the actual the computer is talking, and then it sends me the whole text through the computer what's going on, right?
Yeah.
And it's getting very technical.
Well, that's good that you're using a CRM that's working too.
Yeah.
Because they say for real estate agents, the best CRM is the one that you're going to use.
Yeah.
Right, because a lot of agents don't optimize their CRMs, and it's because it's something that also takes time. Like if you want to operate your CRM properly, like you need to dedicate some time to that. Last year, there was 3 to 4 hours a week where I was setting up these smart campaigns, and I was reading through every email, and it was going to go through like a year of emails, and like some of them were like 2 weeks, and then it's like, and then another month, and then it's like another week, and then like sometimes it's just reaching out to people and saying, hey, just want to remind you, I'm a real estate agent and I have all kinds of contacts in the construction sphere. If you're ever looking for plumbers, electricians, carpenters, anything along those lines, feel free to reach out. Happy to help on anything you need, right? And just these little friendly reminders with people. Hey, just want to touch base. See how you're doing? Do you want to grab a coffee sometime? And then I'll open up my emails on random days and then be like, oh yeah, I sent out something on my CRM, and now I'm getting 15, 20 email responses back because I'll be like, why is everybody emailing me?
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, it's because I sent out an email today.
Well, I had a response the other day from where was it now? Realtor.ca, and somebody sent me an email from Realtor.ca inquiring on a property, and automatically Lofty picked up on this Realtor.ca email, read it, okay, because it is tied up to my emails. Put it in as a client, sent it a smart plan, okay, and got a response.
Yeah.
Long before I could respond to the email from, So it was like, the technology is absolutely, the automation. The automation.
What's nice about that is it frees our time up to then focus on the clients. It frees our time up to focus on the things that we're good at, which is the appointments, the phone calls, the negotiating, the listing, the marketing, all those things that do take quite a bit of time. And that's one thing that I love about technology. And I know some people have different opinions about it, but with AI, I think it's just a tool. We have to understand it as a tool, because I think if there's technology that's going to come into the palm of our hands and we're not going to use it, then you're going to end up being the next Blockbuster, unfortunately, right? You have to know how to use the tools that are going to get you ahead and save you some time, too.
Oh, they save a tremendous amount of times, listing descriptions, area descriptions, which schools are in that area. It's going to look everything up. I mean, sometimes you don't know. I did one out of town. I didn't know. So where's these schools? What are these schools? How close are they? And at the end of the day, it looks all of this stuff up. Yeah. So it makes your life a lot easier, right? When you're dealing with that.
No, absolutely. So speaking on that, we're kind of talking about some of the technology that's available to us here at eXp. You've been with eXp now for over 2 years, so we're on your third year now. What's been your experience so far, coming from your past brokerage? You and I both come from the same brokerage. We don't have to say the name. But what's been your experience here at eXp in the last 2 years?
Well, when I first started with eXp and the Wolfpack, I still couldn't, and I'm mind boggled about this, how, Mike Sherrard puts in the time that he puts in. And he pours in every week. You go every Tuesday night and he's there with a new subject, a new learning curve, a new pattern, It's a learning curve all the time.
Yeah.
Okay. And then he's back again on Friday morning. And to recap what went on Tuesday, which if you want to sit into that, that's great. I never do.
On the Fridays, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I haven't done one of them either.
Yeah.
But that's for anybody that wants to just kind of discuss, right? Air out some of the things going, hey, what we learned on Tuesday, I've been trying this and it's not working. Any suggestions?
Yeah.
That's anybody kind of coming back for a little bit of extra feedback there, which is even incredible that that's a resource for us too. Like, there's calls every single day of the week.
Yeah, there's you can get on however many calls. I mean,
and it's not just fluff calls either. Like, it's not like they're just filling the time with, okay, today we're going to learn. It's like, hey guys, we got a huge topic that's going to get you fired up. It's going to get you motivated.
Yeah.
Here we are coming into Q4. Everybody else is probably taking their foot off the gas. Now's the time to double down. And it's just like all these things.
Geez.
There's mindset calls on Monday, and then we got the Tuesday production calls, and it's and then we've started our own thing here locally on Thursdays, which we've had guest speakers in, and that's more localized right now, which I think it's got its own benefit too. And each one has just an incredible culture and community within each call. Yeah. And then there's the women calls on Wednesdays.
Women's calls. I mean, I've not been to a woman's call.
No, me neither. I know. I said
what that's all about.
I said that on Jazz. I was like, yeah, the women's calls. I've never been to one, and then I watched it back. Like, obviously, you haven't been to one, Brandon.
Yeah, but yeah, no, there's so many calls. I mean, you get on Connor's calls. I mean, I've not been on Connor's calls. I've sort of stuck to Mike's calls.
Yeah, Connor's are really good too.
You leave Mike's calls all fired up, you know.
Yeah.
And you know, for me, I was doing a bit of coaching for a while, and the the clients were asking, you know, where do you get this stuff? Man, I get that on the Tuesday night call, right? It's on every Tuesday night.
Yeah.
Aren't you not going to these calls, right? Yeah. Why aren't you? Did you see what went on in Tuesday? No, I wasn't there. Well, why don't you go there, you know?
Right. And then so when you said clients, you mean the clients you were coaching?
Yes, yeah.
Other real estate agents? Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it's encouraging them, because I watch and I look. Every call I'm on, I always look and I scroll through. If there's 100 people, if there's 300, I'm always scrolling through going, who from our group is on this call? Because I'm curious to see. And there's one agent in particular. She's a newer agent, and she's been getting on just about every call that we have. And she's only been in the industry for about 6 months, and she's crushing it.
She's fired up.
She's crushing it.
I know exactly
she's
who you're
getting
talking
listed.
to.
Right. And I don't want to single anybody out, but so what I'm saying is there's proof in the pudding. If you show up to the calls, and I watch her take action directly after the call. So the call will be something about social media, talking about, you know, if you haven't made a post in a while, introduce yourself or this or that. And then she went and did that. And then it's just like you're seeing the action. And I think this is super important. So it's attending the call is one thing, but then taking action on what you learn is the even more important step in that equation.
Yeah, I think for me, the thing with a lot of Mike's calls on Tuesday night is going back to the school. We call it school.
Yes, yep.
And going back to school and actually watching the call in slow motion. Because for me, I'm trying to grasp how exactly he did what he did. It's great to watch that during the call, but he's not going over that step by step. And then you're actually going over that video again, trying to figure out, you know, how to do that reel, or how to do that roll, or how to splice that roll, or how to do all this stuff, right? And for me, it was like, I had no idea before, you know.
But I mean, you're out there making videos too. You're out there doing your videos, like you said, to the wiper blades, and it's normally very candid videos that you're doing in your truck, which I really like, because I always know you're not planning them, or you're not scripting them, and you kind of just hit record, and then you're talking from the heart, and it's normally very, very entertaining and educational, and just very you. And I like when people do that.
I try to do a lot of questions that I'm getting from clients.
Yeah.
You know, believe it or not, I mean, you get these questions from clients, and then you sort of walk away from the question and say, you know what? You know, I had one the other day, and I think it was the 17th, and it was the 17th of this month. And she says, you know, Mike, she says, I want to buy a house before Christmas. Well, I said, we're the 17th. I said, we should be able to, you know, put an offer on a house. I said, if we go hard at looking for houses, well, yeah, we should be able to, you know, move in sometime in January. And she said, you didn't understand. And I said, well, maybe not. I said, well, you know, what am I missing here? So I went back and she says, Mike, she says, I want to move in before Christmas. Oh, okay. Well, that's a little different. So when I started, I hit the panic button a little bit, and it was like, okay, don't panic. Things seem to work themselves out. And we were out looking at houses, and I said, we have to look at houses probably 3 or 4 in the evening, because they were working during the day. And I said, we'll have to get out at like 6 o'clock. And then if there's one that you like, I doubled back to one that they like. I said, so I can look at it during the day. Looking at a house with a flashlight at nighttime is not,
Yeah, it's not, and unfortunately, you have to do it a lot this time of year.
Yeah,
it's dark at 5:30.
Yeah, yeah. And anyway, we ended up putting an offer on it and putting it together and closing on the 16th of December. So, do you think it's impossible? My brain said it was impossible at first, but it's like, you know what? Let's go.
Right? But you made it possible.
Yeah, you made it possible. But just the mindset is like, oh. Is that possible? Yeah. And I was questioning myself going into that. And then within 3 or 4 days, the deal went on paper, everything's starting to firm up. There's only one more condition to make, and basically we're golden. Yeah. Right? So it's like, okay, this
anything is possible. I mean, it's I'm always willing, just about to give anything a try when it comes to like business, right? Like, I've had some situations where I'm going, I know this is overpriced, but let's see if I can just hit this out of the park with some phenomenal marketing. Let's just see where the limits are here, right? I always like to test things and kind of see where the limits are, and every once in a while you get humbled where you're going, okay, that price was way too high, and no amount of marketing can change what people think about a house, or no amount of marketing changes the product, right? So sometimes that's why it's not even about how much marketing we're doing. We can be doing all the marketing, but if the price isn't right, then it just goes back to, what can you change? Well, if you're doing all the marketing and you're not getting any positive responses from buyers, then it's probably a price issue, unfortunately.
Yeah, you got to try. I get it. You want to try it at 10 or 12 or 15,000 more, trying to get, it's sort of a, would I do that if it was my house? Yeah, I'd want to get the most I could. But you have to sort of look at the market and say, this is what, this is the third realtor that we had into this listing, right. And he's telling us the same thing. At the end of the day, we're all within $3,000 to $5,000. That is the number. And I always take that CMA and I circle that number. And taking the listing going forward, I always circle that number. And I said, hold on to that, would you? I want you to hold on to the CMA. And usually, I'd say 99.9% of the time, and I never go back and say, I told you so, okay? But it lands bang on. Yeah. Right, it lands bang on within $3,000 to $5,000 of that CMA every time, and it's like, do you want to go at this the hard way, or do you want to go at this the easy way? Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, whichever way you decide you want to go. I mean, it's your house,
and that's where we get back to the guiding and being more of a consultant in that sense, right? Where, we can advise, an advisor, I think is the best way to put it, because we can advise our clients on the price that we've come up with through our CMA, through the current market evaluation. But if they want to do something else, it is their house at the end of the day, right? And then we need to figure out whether or not this is a good partnership for us too. Then that's when we need to have the conversation, because just as much as the clients are choosing us as real estate agents, we also need to choose the client as a client, right? We need to go, okay, I'm also comfortable working with you too. We have to because I've been in some situations where I'm going, maybe this isn't going to be a good fit. They might want to work with me. Normally, if somebody wants to work with me, I'm all in. Like, if somebody's like all in on me, I'm all in on them. But I've been in situations before where I'm going, okay, you know what? I didn't feel like they were all in on me, and maybe I wasn't able to go all in on them as well. So and that's why I think there's so much business out there for everybody, because we all have different types of personalities. I'm not for everybody. You might not be for everybody. But at the end of the day, we're going to be for a certain amount of people. And then those people are like my ride or die. So people that want to work with me, it's like, you're going to get 150% from me. You're going to get everything that I have.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing to take out of all that is that there is a strategy and there is a marketing involved in putting together a listing.
Yep.
And if you follow those steps and the steps work for you, it might not work for, you might like to put a listing up on Friday night. I don't want to do that.
Never. Never. I don't even like doing a Friday. I don't even like listing on a Thursday.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, we're getting now on it's like Wednesday's the last day of the week where I would like to put a new listing up.
Yeah. So
Monday, Tuesday, ideally, Wednesday, and then it's like Thursday, Friday, wait till next week.
With an open house on Saturday and Sunday, the first weekend, go hard, go heavy.
100%. Yes.
Get in there, do your thing.
Yep.
And hopefully
Video, photos, drone, open house, and set it all up.
And the turnaround for all of that is, for me, I think you do your shoots as well as I do. And the turnaround for all of that, the drone flyovers, the shoots, all this stuff, takes a little bit of time.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
So it's like, let's sign this on Monday and get it ready to go for Wednesday. Well, maybe get it ready to go to Wednesday after to get everything actually physically ready and, good to go.
Yeah.
But
collecting documents, heating, annual heating and anything else that you might need on there, right?
Yeah.
Just doing all the, again, all the due diligence that has to happen because there's so many moving parts behind the scenes. And making sure that your marketing's ready. If you're doing a video, making sure that video is ready to go because you don't want to list it and then put the video up 2 or 3 days later.
No.
Or you don't, making sure that a property disclosure is filled out and you upload it the day it's going live. Like I often see stuff like get uploaded, 5, 6, 7 days into a listing and it's like, why wait? Why, because we had all that interest at first. Why would you wait? And
I was talking to a client the other day about this property disclosure, and I said, I'd like to post your property disclosure. And she said, why would you want to do that? Well, I want to post it because, there's nothing on here that impedes somebody from buying your house.
Right.
Everything is up to snuff.
Yeah, it's a sales point, right? Someone's going to read this and go, perfect.
You didn't have 4 feet of water in your basement or the place flooded, and you're telling me this. Okay, well, I would, put it up there, but I wouldn't put it to the public. But at the end of the day, you're hanging that with the listing, just that little detail.
Yep.
Like, I just put an offer on a house and the property disclosure was hung. And I read that top to bottom, send that to my clients. I want you to read this top to bottom. Here is the disclosure. Everything is there, right? And if you have questions, reach out. She says, do we need to put the disclosure in the offer? No, you don't. You read it. Do you want to challenge it? You might challenge that in an inspection, but at the end of the day, you don't need to use a property disclosure as a condition.
No, yeah.
It's right there in front of you. Do you need to use that and sign it?
If my clients are okay with it, I like to send it in with the offer, sign it with the offer.
Well, I post them right on the listing, right? They hang the clip right in the listing.
Exactly.
Let everybody look at it.
Exactly.
What are you trying to hide? You're not hiding anything. There's nothing wrong with your house.
Yeah.
Right?
No, exactly. And sometimes the property disclosure can be a great area for a client to mention any upgrades too, because that's another thing that they want to see on the property disclosure. Has the plumbing been upgraded? Has the electrical been updated? Has there been any updates to the roof? And that's a great time to show what you've done to the property as well. And that's what I say, right? It's like, okay, so we need to disclose any issues, but also it's a great time to highlight things that you've done as well. So it's a document that I try to use, strategically with my clients. At the end of the day, we can't fill them out. It's our clients that fill them out, right? We can advise them, but I just make sure to tell them, be honest, be truthful, but also make sure that you highlight anything that you have done, because this is also a area to highlight updates as well.
Yeah, I just finished one with a client, and the property disclosure was, it was clean. There was nothing on it, and I went through that property, and my clients, they call me dad at the end because I'm looking at the foundation, I'm looking at the roof, I'm looking at the windows, I'm looking at stuff that they're not looking at because I'm sort of not. This is not a passionate buy for me. I've done this 100 times.
Exactly.
So for me, it's like, okay, well, the roof is sort of shabby. Maybe we need to put in an actual inspection, see how much life is left of that roof, right?
Yeah.
Or the foundation's got a big crack underneath the patio, which they enclosed and hid, right?
Yeah.
But how much does the thing take in water? All those little things, does it warrant an inspection? Do you want to waive an inspection? Do you want to go forward, with an inspection? I just finished doing one, and there was over $3,700 worth of mold in the attic.
Jeez. And what was the reason? Was it no gable vents, no ridge vents, or was there both? And there was like no proper ventilation because there was a differential of pressure? Or?
They corrected it. They knew it had the problem. They corrected the problem.
Yeah.
Okay.
Was it like black on the sheathing kind of
On
thing?
the sheathing, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much where you're going to see it. But
yeah, we've seen that every once in a while. There's a company around here that'll go in and they remove it. Air Quality Services, AQS.
Yeah, there's a company in Moncton that does the same thing,
and they kind of like scrub it right down, and then they put some type of it's some type of breathable epoxy on it, some like layer that just keeps any bacteria or mold from growing on it again.
Well, the biggest problem in some of these older houses is there's no. This particular house had blown in insulation, and they blew it in right to the soffit. There was zero.
That's okay. Yeah.
Airflow coming through the soffit,
right?
And
yeah, you don't want that.
Well, that's
what'll happen.
So they basically reventilated the soffit and put a ridge vent in it.
Yep.
And you're buying a house that, they fell in love with the house, but you have $3,700 worth of problems upstairs, right? You need to look at this right now.
Yeah.
It either comes off on, and most buyers they don't have $3,700 to buy, go and put
especially
upstairs.
If it's the first buy, exactly. Yeah.
So to remediate that mold, and that's the homeowner, and they had a good idea that was like that up there.
Yeah.
Okay, but didn't disclose that. Right? All of a sudden you have a problem. Well, are we going forward, or are you correcting the mold that's upstairs? And made that part of our condition on an offer.
Exactly.
But I mean, all of that stuff is so important. And even I call it Dad. Dad didn't see the mold. Don't climb in attics, But today we can look and say we have the time now to do an inspection. There's not 6 offers coming in on the table with no inspections and cash buys, and that's all gone, right? So
slowing down,
let's do the proper job at this. Let's check out this house. We're putting $400,000 or $500,000 into this house. Let's do it right, right? Make sure that everything's good when you get peace of mind putting in an inspection in a property.
Yeah,
I've seen too many that I put people in during the pandemic and shake my head after the fact, that knowing that you would have never won the property if you put an inspection in there.
I know, that's the thing. There had to be so many aggressive offers, and a lot of times it's people removing inspections. It's funny actually. I just posted a video about doing about the market moving to a balanced market here in St. John, and I had a message from a home inspector that was like, "Yeah, we'll be able to do inspections again."
They should. And
I was like, right. I never actually fully thought of that. Like, it's so funny how these different types of markets will have consequences for other businesses, right? How one thing affects another. And over the last 5 years with this aggressive sellers market we've had here in New Brunswick, it's, like thinking back to some of these inspectors, it's like, geez, their business probably took a huge hit the last little while.
Yeah, and Moncton's been doing inspections, I think, late February and March there. The panic was off, and people started to relax a little bit and start doing their due diligence when they're buying a house. I mean, I've seen inspections from late February right on through. We did an inspection on a brand new build. Doing an inspection on a new build, the chances of something being wrong are not that great. And come to find out, the inspection that we did on a brand new build had absolutely zero insulation in the attic.
Yeah.
Somebody forgot to put it.
Yeah.
And this is a brand new house.
Yeah.
I seen one with a beam missing in the basement. Carrier beam, missing a carrier beam.
Yep. All depends on the builder, depends on so many factors, right? And people would assume a new construction house would have no issues, but that's also not true.
No.
That's also not true, right? Because there's humans involved, and I think anytime there's humans involved in anything, there's a certain amount of errors that are just going to happen over time. If there's enough people spitting out enough products, like you had, somebody missed the insulation in the attic. Could have just been...
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know how that happens, but
yeah, no.
I don't know how
I was
it
a little
happens,
bit
but
blown away because, you know, the inspector said,
you were blown away, but there was none blown in there.
No, there was none blown in there. But I remember the local inspector, and he says, I always come in on the final minute to see.
Yeah.
I call it what the majors are.
I like to come in during the inspections, absolutely, because
Yeah.
you want to see. I like to see my client's face when they're hearing this stuff, and just sometimes they'll raise an eyebrow, but
Yeah.
the inspector doesn't catch it.
Yeah.
And then I'm going, do you mind just explaining what that means for them, right?
Yeah, I've got a couple of inspectors that, you know, don't blow things out of the water. They're very good at explaining what that actually means. Is it something you need to deal with right now? Or is it something that can be, you know, dealt with at a later date?
Right. Don't let the deal fall apart because
Yeah,
there's
you know.
five plugs that need GFCIs.
Yeah, well, on a new code in a 1975 house.
Right, because
Yeah.
like you could hear that going, oh, what does that mean? And it's like that might sound overwhelming, but it's just literally like putting like a grounding in a plug, right?
Yeah.
So like you know
Yeah.
just little things, the GFCI ground fault circuit interrupter, something like that.
Next to a sink or next to
Exactly,
a water source. Yeah.
Yep. And
But-
you know, and that's with code changing over the years.
Yeah, code. You know, I mean, my house is built in the 90s, and they had one in the bathroom which was tied to the ones in the kitchen. You know, that basically were all tied together, but they weren't. They were one circuit, but they weren't all that plug, right?
Yeah.
So you see over the terms, over the different years, how some of the the codes change, right? But you can't go in there with a 2025 inspector looking at a 1987 house. You know, you're going to find some discrepancies in the codes.
Yeah, no, exactly. And every 5 years, the code changes.
Yeah.
I want to steer this a little bit back to some EXP topic real quick. So you've been with EXP for 2 years. So we talked about kind of how you find EXP. What I want to know, Mike, is how do you find our Wolfpack group here at EXP? What has your experience been? And be honest, because I'm honestly curious how you enjoy this.
Well, Wolfpack Group in Moncton, I joined under yourself in St. John. Some of the people in St. John, Moncton, it's a pretty open group. Where I see it all the time in the chat, or somebody wanting to share some stuff or asking me about, those posts or whatever. There's always a question in that group. I was answering one of the agents the other night at like 11 o'clock.
Yeah.
Why are you asking this at 11 o'clock at night? New agent, I get it, right? So I'll just take 2 seconds and answer this.
Yeah.
But
I think it's a huge resource having that group chat too. I think it's a huge resource for anybody that does have questions, and just kind of crowdsourcing amongst professionals that we all trust each other.
Yeah,
right?
I think, it's
all real estate agents. We all trust each other. If somebody's got a question, we're there to kind of support each other and back each other up in there.
Yeah, some of the wake-up calls, I call it wake-up calls of a lot of stuff that you don't have as an agent, whether you're with eXp or not, but I mean, how to correct things in your business, what things are missing in your business, things that you don't know. But, I got that, I think, from you coming back from Florida, where he says, you're not doing enough videos, or I didn't have a website, Mike, you don't have a website. Oh, no. But it works, right?
Yeah,
It's like, and is it necessary? I think, we were talking about the other day, and it's sort of interesting when you get looking at it, look yourself up online.
Yeah. Right? I've been doing that a lot lately.
And
I've been doing that a lot with
what's
ChatGPT.
missing, right?
Yeah.
What's missing?
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. And I mean, these are some of the conversations we have in our group too, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I really enjoy the conversations that we have, and how we'll kind of spark different thoughts amongst each other too, right? Because we all have so much different experience. We all are good at different things and have different personalities and focus on different things. And I think that as we kind of feed off each other, that collaboration, it just creates a very nice wholeness kind of. And it has you thinking about everything all the time in a way. And then also too, just the events that we do, the amount of times that we get together. This summer we got out on that boat there in Shediac.
Yeah.
That was super cool. I'm excited to do that again this summer coming.
Yeah, that was a good event. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. You know, we have a Christmas, almost like, we just have a Wolfpack Christmas dinner coming up here on the 5th.
Yeah.
We're going to the regional rally, the conferences that we go to. And then early in the year, like sometimes we just get together for photos, stuff like that. Sometimes we just get together just to grab a bite to eat, catch up with everybody, see how things are going.
Yeah,
you know, there's a lot
2, 3, 4 times a year that we're getting out with some of the people, and you know, I mean, it's you're sort of rolling a lot of things over some of the people. You know, we get talking. A lot of people are asking me about this you know, this mile IQ thing, and how do you put that in your business, and how do you implement that, and you know how do you? I was talking to one the other day. You know, how can you buy that kind of car? Well, you know, it's sort of like, I don't have an office. I'm not paying office fees. I don't pay all these monthly fees. This is my office. I live in that vehicle.
Yeah.
Okay, I hate to say that, but I mean,
it's true.
You know,
something,
and we're talking about this in the vehicles the other day. I said, does the thing have a 120 plug in it? You know?
Yeah.
Something as important as that on a 120 plug, you know, you got to have that.
Yeah, you can hook you can just hook a printer up in there if you want.
Right? Yeah, laptop's dead or whatever's going on.
Laptop's dead, yeah.
But you're on the road all the time, and you're sitting in this vehicle, you know, and we're talking about this mile IQ and and it's until you look at it, actually how much mileage you do and the value of each mile that you put on. Mm-hmm. It's amazing to see how much money you spend in the run of a year in a vehicle.
Yeah, that's something I learned from you, was the Mile IQ, was downloading that. Because, well, it's nice because it logs every single time you get in your vehicle.
Well,
then you're not sitting there with a pen and a pad and figuring out how many kilometers you just drove and doing the math on your odometer. It'll do it all for you, getting back to the automation, right? Finding different ways to automate.
Well, I was talking to an accountant the other day, and you know, we're going to take 80% of that. No, you're not. You're not going to take 80% of that. You're going to take 100% of that. And I said, all this other mileage that I do personally, I said, is not in there.
It's logged personal.
It's logged personal.
Right.
This is mileage for business only.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's the easy thing with the swipe left or right. Was that a personal drive or is that business?
Well, keep
it simple.
I used to be tied in where the vehicle came out of the business, and at the end of the day, we got looking at that, and I said, you know what? I'm getting ripped off by the amount of mileage that I'm not being able to claim. Mm-hmm. So with this Mile IQ, I mean, I'm writing myself a check every month to pay off my personal vehicle. And it's such again, the technology of that. And I've never had, in 6 years now, I got a pretty good finger on what's going on. And I mean, it's about $18,000 a year. It's a lot of money in mileage, you know, we just like, people don't look at that. We don't. Well, you know, how come I didn't make any money last year? Well, you blew $20,000 in a car, right?
Yeah.
But it's like you don't know it till you get looking at it, and you get finding that out.
And this is why people like to pick your brain, because you've figured out some of these ways to get ahead. And at the end of the day, we're all business owners. When you're a real estate agent, you might think you're working for the brokerage, but we're all working for ourselves. Yeah. And we need to operate that way. And we need to operate in a way, and that's one thing that I do love about eXp, is that it almost encourages that type of entrepreneurial mindset, where it's, you know, we are all our own business owners, and we need to find the ways to be able to, I guess, save as much, pay less in taxes, but also make sure, I mean, because the more that we're able to save for ourselves, the more that we can reinvest back into our business, making our services better for our clients, everything along those lines, right? And it's stuff that they just don't teach. They don't teach it in school. They don't teach it in the real estate course. Nobody's coming in saying, okay, here's what you need to do. Once you make X amount of dollars, then you get incorporated. Yeah. And then you should find a good accountant, and here's a couple people. Nobody really points you. Everybody's kind of figuring it out on their own. And that's one reason that I do like our groups, because we'll all kind of just ask these questions going, what are you doing? Or what are you using? Or who do you, right? And then so we're all kind of learning from each other. And I think that speeds up the process as opposed to us all going and being kind of individual and trying to figure this out on our own.
Well,
or in a brokerage maybe where people don't want to talk about this stuff, or it might not even, it might be taboo to bring something like that up. Perhaps.
Well, yeah, I mean, for me, even talking to a manager, I mean, if I call and it's comical because I call our manager, of course, and I said, if I'm calling you, you might want to pick up because this is probably going to be a pretty serious conversation. If I'm wasting my time, I'm not wasting anybody's time calling you up.
Right.
And she called me I called her the other day, and we had a conversation, and it was interesting to hear her say, okay, well, how are we going to get around that?
Yeah.
How are we going to work our way around that?
Yep.
Okay.
They're with you. She's there with you.
Yeah, she's there with you.
Yep.
This is the situation.
She's not barking at you, not saying, Mark, this, that, no, yeah, or it's right. It's
how are we going to work around that?
Exactly. And I've had that happen with her so many times. And it's just, how, and like she'll ask, how do you want to go about this?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you have questions for her, she will definitely answer. But then she's also looking for the feedback of going, how do we want to navigate this together? Which direction do we want to go? Just let me know, and she's going to help you go.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing working with eXp over working for a brokerage, I call it bricks and mortar brokerage, is that you're by yourself, but you have so many resources to pick at. If you need that, you need to learn how to work by yourself. You've got to be somewhat disciplined, because if you're not disciplined, you're not going to be doing the work. You're going to these brokerages and you come out of there and, you go back and do the work. But now you're at home or in your vehicle. Again, I call it my rolling office. Yeah. Right. So you're working out of those conditions all the time. So it's a little bit different. If you're not disciplined, I mean, at the end of the day, maybe eXp is not for you.
I would agree. I would agree with you. Yeah, if you're not a disciplined individual, I don't think this is a brokerage for you. And that's another reason that I do like our group is I'd say the majority, almost all of the agents in our group are disciplined, and it's they're out doing the things. Even the new agents, they're out there finding their way. And it's like that's the type of people that eXp will grow with and thrive with, is people that are innovative, people that are entrepreneurial, people that are disciplined, and that's why they say it's where the pros go to grow. And it's because there's so much room to grow. There's no real confinement or limitation. There's no restriction, no. There's no restriction. Nobody's calling us saying, hey, you can't do this, can't do that. We're at the end of the day, we're in control of our business. Sure, there's policies and procedures, just like anything else. But there's a lot of freedom for us to operate as entrepreneurs. Yeah, I mean, I get calls all the time from our a lot of different agents in eXp and ask questions. I won one the other day and didn't know how to get to the new chat, which I sent them the link, and here's who you need to speak to, and this is for your new listing that's going up, and this is how you do it. And didn't know that you couldn't send the listing to the province, to the board anymore, which is they sort of. We had a couple changes going on. Yeah, we had a couple of change. Yeah. So I mean, everything got done. It's not a big deal. Let me send you the link. It's not a big deal. Don't get all flustered over that. It takes 2 seconds to fix this problem. Exactly. Right. It's a different way of communicating, and that's what I guess. It's hard to get your head wrapped around it until you do. It's like I get all those questions, but. You reach out to one of the girls and ask them why my listing isn't put up, and it's usually put up within 2 minutes of the question, right? Right. Let's do a little shout out here for new agents. Let's try to give some value to people maybe just getting in the industry. Maybe it's their first, second, third year, and maybe they didn't have a year that they're proud of, or they're not having the year they expected to have. What would be your advice, Mike, to agents who are just starting off, didn't have a great year? What would be your advice to those agents? Because I think we've all been there. Dig into the resources. I mean, sit down and do the Tuesday night calls, do the Friday afternoon calls. When I first came to eXp, I dug in heavy. Yeah. And it was like, okay, I want to know how the systems work, how to put things together, the calls. I mean, every call had a different direction, whether it was lead gen or it was systems or whatever it was. Yeah. And
you know, after a year of calls, and what's remarkable, after a year of calls, he's still putting out new programs and new
Yeah.
the guy never quits.
So it's right. So it's finding a mentor then. Find a mentor and surround yourself with people who are there to teach you and there to inspire and there to train, right? And I think that's what we have a lot of here within the Wolfpack. We have some amazing mentors and leaders between Mike, Connor, and then the fact that we get to connect and collaborate with some of the other leaders across the globe as well in some of the other groups, you know, Kyle, Mark, Louis Galt, like you were saying, even just following some of their content. And then, you know, you can learn a lot just by following someone's Instagram, right? When they're putting out that type of content.
You get, you know, I mean, Mike's been number one, I'd say, for the last 2 years for me. The go-to person to pick up new things, new cutting edge things that are going on in the industry, some of the videos, some of the stuff. Louis been inspiring for trying to get your life together.
I love it. I really love it. And him and I actually had a really good conversation when we were in Miami. And you know, he pretty well said he went that all happened out of pure necessity in my life. Like it was like, you know, this isn't something that I just picked up because I thought it'd be useful for people. It was like I needed this for me.
You need to do it.
Right. And then he realized the impact that it had on his life. So then he's going, I think that this will change some other people's lives too. And his whole his philosophy on time management is incredible. And I think that is something that's important for longevity in this business.
You're taking yourself away from chaos, right? And you don't understand that until you start time blocking and actually go by the time block.
Right.
That the chaos is gone because you were creating your own chaos.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just not there no more.
Right. And it's almost like there's chaos created because there's so many different ways that we can be pulled in our business, and we could sit down and go, okay, I have an hour. I should do this, or maybe I should do that. And you might think of all these things, but then you're probably not actually getting anything done because there's too much chaos. When time blocking, you look and you go, okay, for the next hour, I'm working on filming a video or filming some content, or I'm working on getting X ready for this listing, or I'm going to go meet this person. But at least like when you look at your calendar and there's time blocks in there. And one thing that I love that Mike Sherrard said recently is give yourself some buffer room, because oftentimes things don't go perfect. You might think you need an hour to get something done. Block two, because by the time because in real estate things come up. You know, some phone calls that we might have to take might come up while we're doing that thing. Or maybe we're you know, something comes up, you know, as we're getting ready for this podcast here, there were some technology things. Had to make a quick phone call beforehand, right? Yeah. Things never go perfect as much as I would love them to, because I love when things go perfect. It's just, there's something that feels right. Everything, I start to walk a little bit better, but very often things don't go according to plan. And that's just the nature of life.
I just did that on the weekend. You know, it's Saturday, late afternoon Saturday, and I had three showings. And I booked 3 showings back to back. And I did 2 in Dieppe, and I said, I'm going to run up to Moncton North.
Should be enough time, yeah.
Lots of time to get to Moncton North. I said, probably 15, 20-minute drive. And lo and behold, you know, Mike Bourque forgot that it was the Santa Claus parade last weekend.
That's what I'm talking about.
Bumper to bumper traffic.
How are you supposed to plan that?
30 minutes, and it's like panic's on, and how do I get around this traffic? And got to Moncton North, and the client got to Moncton North. We're both about 15, well, we were half an hour late. But I said, don't worry about it. You know, I booked the showing for an hour. So we got another half an hour to go look at the house. We overbooked the showing. So I said, when I got there, I was half an hour late, but I still had a half an hour. Can you look at a house in half an hour? Yes, you can.
Absolutely you can. Especially when you know what you're doing. And then what I like to do is get on the inside of the house, because if you have 30 minutes in the house, and it's like, get in, see the inside, and then as we're leaving, we'll do the outside kind of deal, right?
Yeah.
And then also, too, because you want to figure out, you know, I want to see if you like the inside first, and if you don't, there's no point of looking at the outside then.
It's a waste of time.
Especially if you're in that 30-minute crunch window, I like to try to get right in the door quick, and then leave at the 30-minute time and do a quick little walk around.
Try to take chaos out of your business, right? And it's like time blocking is a big thing to take chaos out of your business.
Yeah.
I mean, even coming up here today, okay, do I have the afternoon clear to drive to St. John and come back. And you got to take that time, right? You got to do that stuff. Because for me, it's like, you know, that's just important, is going to a listing or showing or whatever. It's all booked. If it's not in the calendar, it don't exist.
It doesn't exist, and that's exactly right. That's exactly right. There's so many good sayings that we have from some of our leaders. What's another one that I really like that Mike says? You don't rise to your goals, you fall to your standards.
Yeah.
I love that one.
Yeah.
I love that one because it's, you know, a lot of us write down goals, and our goal for this year is X. And then it's like, but if you don't have standards to get to your goals, you know, and maybe some standards are 2 hours of lead generation a day. You know, another standard is book at least, you know, 2 appointments with somebody. Even if you have nothing going on, go to get a coffee. Make 5 phone calls to some people. Like, some standards, right, are going to help to get you there.
Yeah.
And it's not the goal. Writing down the goal is one thing, and it's important to write things down, I believe. There's actually science behind it, so it's definitely important to write things down. And then also, but how you're going to get to there. I think that's a big thing that I've learned in this group, is learning how to take a goal and break it down into action items. Take those action items and put them into the calendar, because if you don't put them into the calendar, they don't exist. So now you're putting down actual little items, and it might just be for the next 40 minutes, you're doing 5 phone calls. Call 5 people. Make 5 phone calls to some people that maybe you haven't talked to in a little while, past clients, something, right?
Yeah.
And then when you write that down and you follow those standards and you time block for that, then it becomes a lot easier. And you have to treat those like appointments is the thing. Because I've had some agents recently going like, how do you make it to all the calls, or how do you make it to this or that? And it's like, you have to put these things in the calendar, and you have to make them a priority, and you have to take them as serious. Like, you know, we have to take our business as seriously as we're taking our clients' business too.
Yeah.
And we do that for our clients as well, right? We need to make sure that we're equally working on the business as we are working in the business. And there's seasons for that as well, I think. I think that you're never going to have a perfect 50-50. There's never going to be a perfect balance. There's going to be some times where it's just you're working on keeping up to the deals that you have, the listings, the closings, talking to the lawyers, doing that, because all those are high priority things in that moment. And maybe you might have to move some stuff around that day that you wanted to do. You know, I might have to do a little bit extra lead gen tomorrow because today just got completely consumed. So it's never 50-50, but if you can build a calendar to support your business goals, your personal life, then it just makes it a lot easier, taking the chaos away, like you said.
I think January is probably a great time to work in your business.
Yes,
you know,
it's such a good time.
Get in there, start doing websites, start doing that kind of thing. You know, get. But you know, when they're new agents, they want to do everything right away. I remember myself becoming a new agent.
Yeah,
I wanted everything overnight. And it was like, it's not going to happen.
Do you know, I think the best thing to do as a new agent is find the way that you're comfortable doing lead gen. And if that's social media, then commit to it. If that's door knocking, then commit to it. If that's cold calling, then commit to it. And I think at that point, like, have your goal just being find ways to be of value to people that potentially want your services. So it's you know, and then volunteer for things. Do open houses. See if you can go to showings with other experienced real estate agents to see maybe how that looks, and then get some tips from them, and try to hang out with people and surround yourself with people that are actively doing business and actively doing what you want to do.
Yeah, I think.
But I think just finding the way that they're comfortable is the biggest thing. And what I always try to tell people, because I find when you come in, your mindset is, I need business. I need to sell a house to somebody. But when that's your mindset, you're actually going to repel any business.
Yeah, you're going to push it away.
You're going to push it away.
Yeah.
So then I try to rewire their brains and say, find a way to be of value. You want to be of service to people, because once you become of service to them, then the deals are going to end up happening. Yeah. At some point, you're going to transact with somebody when you're helping them. It's finding a way to help.
I think the main thing a lot of agents have to sort of figure out, and it took me a long time. It took me all of 5 years or better to figure out, how much business do you really want?
Yes, that's a big one too. That's a great question. Yeah.
How much business do you really want?
Yep.
Manage yourself around that business. I don't have to be, and I used to say that, I don't want to be like that guy down the hall, right?
Running ragged.
Yeah,
and
the
all hours of
guy's
the
doing
day.
100 ends a year. He doesn't know which way's up or down, and he's making tons of money. But at the end of the day, how much money is good for you?
Right.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because success is going to look different to everybody.
Everybody has a different vision of success and what it's going to be for them.
Right.
So I mean, at the end of the day, when we look at it, new agents, they all want to make a ton of money. That's just what they have in their brain.
Yeah.
But you get comfortable with where you're good at, how many listings you want to, and you can reverse engineer that over 12 months and say, okay, well, if I'm going to hit 25 or 20 listings, I got to hit X amount of listings every month to get to that 20 listings.
Right.
But, if to go, I call it blind, and I remember going blind, just going at whatever you could go at to get to 60 ends or 30 ends or whatever you're going to do.
Right.
For what?
Yeah.
And to I remember arriving at Christmas being so burnt out, so fired up, and then I call the switch went off. It was almost like you were operating on adrenaline.
Yeah.
Right?
For prolonged periods, months.
6 months,
Months
8
on
months
end.
at an end.
Yeah.
And
it's almost just like you're kind of like right on your phone kind of things, like almost right before bed, you fall asleep, you're like, okay, exhausted. And then wake up and it's like, right on the phone
2,
again.
3 o'clock in the morning, starting to go again.
Right. And then it's just these cycles of sleeping and waking up and just being right in it and kind of plugged in. And I've often said this, and this is my analogy. Sometimes I feel like I'm being waterboarded by life.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel that?
Yeah.
Like it's almost like there's, and in a way where, I mean, it's not completely suffocating me, but there's times where I mentally feel like I'm being waterboarded just with with things I need to do, things I need to remember. That's another thing. There's a lot to remember in this business. There's a lot to just, little things to hold on to. Like even if you're out showing 3, 4, 5 buyers in a week, and then, they're asking about, when's the irrevocable on that one? I'm trying to memorize, but I'm like, am I getting those 2 properties mixed up? I'd have to pull that up here in a second, and it's just
I'm getting a little older, so I need a board now. I need to have all these dates on a board, right? Because if it's not on a board, again, it's like the calendar's doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Conditions are due on what date? I got to go look at the purchase and sale.
And it's nice to have something on a board, actually. Yeah, I have my whiteboard upstairs.
The whiteboard, you get that all listed out and stuff. But it's sort of funny, I mean, looking back now. This is year 7 for me, and I look back at year 1 and 2, and I remember doing, I think it was 4 listings on the first year. Yeah. 4 or 6 or 8, I forget what it was.
I think I was right around. I did. I think my first year I made $30,000 my first year. And
I think I was 1 deal short of cap. The first year I was 1 deal short of cap, and then after that I capped every year after that. Yeah. So it was like, and
it took me 3 years, and then I hit my cap. But I was the second year I was just like 1 or 2 deals shy.
Yeah,
of cap.
This year I didn't cap, and it's like, what, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, but for anybody listening too, you did some pretty large investments, and sorry, I guess I should say developments.
Projects, yeah.
Working
on projects that sort of...
You had something that consumed a lot of your time.
Pushed me in a different direction, right? So, of course,
it's all you're doing.
You cap? You could have, but I mean, you're...
But you have to value sanity too. You have to value your sanity.
Again, you're getting pushed and shoved in about 3 different ways all the time. Different direction.
What's your favorite thing about real estate? Being a real estate agent?
I'd have to say the flexibility of time now, where you can, again, book around where you want to be. Mm-hmm. I mean, I golfed a lot last summer. Yeah. I took the time to do it, which I never did before. And
I think people should say that stuff with pride. I think people, like a lot of times, I feel like we feel bad for even saying that. We feel bad for saying, hey, I golfed a lot last summer.
Well, you're thinking it's a bad thing to go golfing, and, you shouldn't be golfing. You should be going looking for clients, or you should be,
right. Right. But we're our own employers. We're our own boss, and we're the employee too. Yeah. So we have to make the decision on, hey, do I have the time to go out and do something?
It's a balancing act. I mean,
it's creating a lifestyle.
It's creating a lifestyle. Do it? Yeah, you can do it. It's a balancing act to make sure that everything's getting taken care of, and you're golfing too. But I mean, at the end of the day, if you can't do that in this business, you need to get out.
Yeah.
And it took me 7 years to figure that out.
Yeah.
Right? You need to get out of the business if you can't treat yourself to a little bit of time of your own.
You have to. And it's, I think this kind of conversation even needs to be had more publicly with entrepreneurs. I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they glorify the hustle and the grind, and I'm at it for 16 hours a day. Oh yeah, well I do 18. Oh yeah, well I do 20. Yeah, well I don't sleep. I do 24. I don't sleep. All I do is work. And it's just like, that's, sure, you can say that out there on content, get some people fired up, but like at the end of the day, I've also been on the other side of burnout, where last year I ran 3 marathons and I was doing 2 videos a week for like all year, did I think 22 episodes of this podcast, and all the deals I was doing. There was a huge growth within our organization. We brought in a bunch of agents, and I came into January that year looking in the mirror going, why do I feel like a shell of myself? Why am I not excited to get this going again? And why do I actually feel like I'm like tremble, like I have no confidence. I'm like low energy. I'm like, I don't even feel comfortable like walking out in public right now.
I do it.
And it's just like immense burnout.
Yeah, I do it every year. I get to Christmas every year, and it takes me a good part of January and February to get back into the grind of things again, because it's just, you get fried. You get fried, and you don't even realize you're fried. I think until you stop.
Until you stop, right? Because it's almost like exactly like you said, like the adrenaline.
You pull the adrenaline plug, and everything stops, and it's like what?
And then your body goes into the homeostasis where it's like, oh, this is what it feels like to relax. And I went to Holland for 2 weeks this summer to visit my grandmother with my brother and sister. It was an amazing trip, but it took me probably 2 to 3 days just to fully relax, just to fully feel relaxed. And then I was uncomfortable at first when I got out there. I was like, okay, like the first night I was on my computer making business calls, because it's like, that's what I felt like I had to do, even though I was in Europe. I was on another friggin' side. I was at a different continent.
Yeah.
And then, I'm pulling up my laptop, and it's like, whatever the difference is, 8 hours or whatever. And I'm like doing math, calling people at like 2, 3 in the morning. And then, at some point, someone said to me, they're like, Brendan, you're here on vacation.
Put that away.
You're here on vacation.
Yeah.
Like, you're here to spend some time with family. Like, relax. And it's something that people have to say to me every time I go on a vacation, is like, dude, like, relax. Like, you're on vacation right now. You can chill. And I have a very hard time doing that.
Yeah.
And then once I do, I go, and I'm just like, this feels nice. Wow, does it ever feel nice to have a few days where luckily I have Jelaine. I had my phone on call forwarding, so I didn't even have to answer the phone. But that allowed me to like feel this homeostasis of like, this is what relaxing feels like.
Yeah.
And it's like a foreign feeling.
I think a lot of, I wouldn't say a lot of them, I say most realtors have got to that, have arrived at that stage where they're fried. They don't come out and say it, where I'm fried. I'm not going to take any calls for the next month, but I get to the winter and I do a little snow removal and I play around a little bit, and it's like, you know what? It's sort of good. It's good to get away from some of that stuff, right?
Absolutely. And that's why it's important to have hobbies.
Yeah.
That's why it's important to have hobbies. Like this year I didn't get out to hunt very much, but that's my own fault. I'm going to, like, as the hunting season just ended yesterday, and I'm thinking about it going, I worked through the entire hunting season, but that's because I chose to. And I know next year I'm going to make sure that I put some systems in place that I don't need to do that again, right?
Well,
so it's I think a lot of it goes back to the systems, goes back to our calendar, goes back to building a lifestyle that kind of complements the business and personal side as well.
Yeah, I think real estate's like a switch. And when you learn how to turn it off and turn it back on, and how to turn it back on, it becomes quite an okay business at that point.
Absolutely, yes.
You know, but I think that's something as a new realtor, they don't know how to shut that switch off. I didn't know how to shut that switch off.
I know, and it's almost starting off. It's almost hard to. It's hard to, because you need to be there, and you want to build that trust, that rapport. You almost have to just go so hard the first couple of years. Somebody explained this to me. They said real estate is like, in any business, is like getting a plane off the ground. there's a lot of energy and effort that is expelled to get the plane moving as fast as it needs to go on the runway, and then the wheels go in and it lifts off there, and it takes a lot. But once it's in the air, then it takes less energy. Then the energy can be conserved. But you need a big movement, I think, at first.
Yeah.
You need a big push to come in proper to the industry. That's just my opinion.
I've seen it coaching. I've seen it coaching quite a bit, where you see these agents and they can't. They come to the coaching class and everything they say is they can't. And I remember going to coaching, and I had sort of the same thing. I can't, and I can, and maybe I can fly now. Maybe I can fly now. I'm lifting off, right? And they call that breakthrough, where you've finally broken through the I can't and go to yes, I can.
100%.
Okay,
yeah.
and you are doing it, and now you are flying on your own. But like I told an agent the other day, how you're flying, I said, can you maintain the flight?
Mm-hmm. That's another question.
Yeah, can you keep it in the air? Right. You're rolling now, right? You've got the plane flying, and you're rolling, and you got it in the air. Okay, but are you going to crash? Because I can guarantee you're probably going to crash. Okay.
Yeah. And that's why I think it's important to get the plane up at your own speed too, metaphorically speaking here.
Yeah.
Getting the plane up to your at your own speed, because sometimes you might be able to grab on with somebody else and they're like, hey, come on, we're going to go up, and then pass the controls over. But it's like, I didn't actually even learn how to take this thing off, and now someone's passed me the controls. Yeah. So it's like, I find a lot of things happen to us at the right times in our business.
Yeah.
Our growth happens not when we want it, but when we're ready for it. Our growth happens not when we want it, but when we're ready. Because a lot of people want it instantly, but they're not ready for it instantly. If a new agent came in and then their phone rang with 20 new clients, they would have no idea what to do with 20 new clients or how to service that properly, right? So it's like, you need to almost earn your stripes, like anything.
Well, I mean, I've seen it over the years where you get to call it, 7, 8 o'clock at night. What do I do now? And this.
right. And it's almost like every side of the negotiations, like, okay, they just said this, what should I say?
Yeah.
And then it's like, I love those, because those are actually fun. And I remember the feeling of like, this is so important. And if I say the wrong thing, then it's going to wreck this deal. And I don't want to say the wrong thing. So what's the right thing? So I'm going to call somebody who knows the right thing to say. And like, and we're so casual with it now, going, oh, just say this. Okay, yeah, no, they're just looking for a counter, or you need to say this, or you just need to stand your ground, right? Like, it's fairly obvious for us at the time, but as soon as I get a little bit of context, I always go, what did they say last? What did you say to them before that? Give me a little bit of context, and then we'll figure out kind of where to go from there.
Yeah, I just did it with the agent that I did it with the other day was like, I call it a seasoned agent. I think he's probably 15, 20 years in there, and, he calls me up and says, I got your offer. Yeah. Something wrong? He says, no. It's a little low, don't you think? Yeah. And I said, yeah, it's sort of low. Yeah. So I said, did you present it? No. Well, I guess that's your next step. Give me a call. I said, give me a call back once you present it. I said, with your counter offer. Are you going to counteroffer this? Are you going to throw me to the curb? What are you going to do?
Let me know what your client says.
Exactly.
What's the response?
So, at the end.
I don't want your response. I want your client's response.
I don't care about your response. It's like, we can have this conversation on the phone right now. It's not giving you or me anything.
Yeah, no, right. You got to present it to the client.
Go present it to the client and come back and tell me what, where you're at.
Yep.
And, it was sort of funny, but I mean, he came back and they accepted it, But I think what he was trying to do at the time was trying to pick my brain a little bit, and
I wanted to see if he could bump that up at all before presenting.
And it's like, I'm not giving you nothing. Why should I give you any kind of motivation, right?
But I mean, good on him. Good try. I don't ever fault somebody for trying. But that's the offer. We signed it for a reason. Now just let us know what your client says.
No, but
all right.
And you see these new agents coming back with all these questions, and it's like, there's some support behind the scenes when the questions come in. I mean,
I think everybody needs a little support starting off. It's because it's an industry that's just got so many different complexities.
I think, I look at it and I've seen that, you bring somebody into this business, you should support them,
100%.
It should, yeah.
100%. Yeah.
Go see that guy over there. He'll answer you. And at the end of the day, I said, bring the people in and support the people you bring in.
Yeah. And bring them into a group that they can be supported in as well, right? So it's like sometimes we don't need to do all the supporting ourselves. We plug them into the systems that we have, the calls, the training, there's social media training on there. There's literally choose your own adventure for how you want to get your leads. And then with the Social Agent Academy. But then from there, too, putting them in a group of other agents. And then we have our messenger chat group. So then when there's questions on there, because sometimes I'm not able to answer all the time. And I don't know all the answers. But then we'll all pitch in. Somebody might know, I just dealt with that. Here's what it is. Bam, that, right?
That's experience. That takes time.
Takes time, takes experience.
Years
I think it takes
experience.
Surrounding yourself with the right people.
Yeah. Do I have all the questions or all the answers to the questions? No, sometimes I have to go look.
Yeah.
No different than anybody else, even 7 years into this game. You're always going to find something new. There's always something in this business that's going to basically, put you in a place that you don't know. And if you think you know everything in this business, good luck with you.
Right.
Yeah. It should humble you it should
every
humble
day.
you. Yeah.
Every day.
Yeah.
It's quite humbling every single day. And that's one thing I've learned to love about this business is there's always something where I'm going, I didn't even think about that. Or, geez, I need to look into this now. Something new always comes up.
Yeah.
Or new personalities. And, you're never selling the same home twice normally. Everything's a different product. And then people have different motivations. They have different needs. They have different styles that they want to be communicated in.
That's something you're going to adapt yourself around. I mean, at the end of the day, but that's the years of being a realtor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's land this plane, Mike. What do you have any closing words? Anything you want to say to the folks at home? We can clip up here.
Yeah. Stay working at Superstore.
Don't be a realtor.
Yeah.
No, I mean.
A realtor, becoming a realtor can be a rewarding career. It takes some time. It's not something that happens overnight. Give yourself some time. Give yourself some space to do it, and keep moving. I mean, these people that are starting out as realtors, some of them hit it off right away, and some of them take 3 and 4 years to get broken through.
Yeah.
And
it kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier, is that you get the business that you deserve and that you're ready for, right? So it's, some people takes a little bit longer, but if they stay committed to it, then I think it's possible, right? This is a game of endurance, I believe, as well. I think some of real estate is endurance, is staying active year after year, is consistency. There's so many different parts to it.
And I always say you're only as good as your next referral. At the end of the day, you got to look at the big picture.
That's true. You're always you're only as good as your next at bat, right?
Yeah. And somebody's going to give you that, next at bat because, you've probably dealt with them before and they had a great experience. So at the end of the day, they're saying, give Mike a call. And, he's going to treat you right and get you the house you need. And that's where it comes from.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's, you can work 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, and it gets easier, I guess, as you move along. It's very difficult when you start, but it's like you'll get past that. Yeah.
And you've done a little bit of it all. You've done residential, commercial, the investing.
Yeah.
You've got a whole wealth of experience. So if anybody at home's looking for a real estate agent in Moncton, New Brunswick, Mike Bourque's ready to go.
Right on.
Right on.